my name is Kim Cofino. Welcome to the 4th Annual K-12 Online Conference. I'm absolutely honored to be kicking off this year's conference with my presentation, Going Global, Culture Shock, Convergence, and the Future of Education. Here in downtown Bangkok, where I've lived for the last 3 years, I've realized that living overseas has taught me important skills, behaviors, and attitudes. At the same time, as a technology educator, I've realized that many of those same skills, behaviors, and attitudes are the ones often referred to as 21st century traits. In this presentation, with collaboration and help from educators and students around the world, we will explore the connections and parallels between living overseas, being globally minded, and finally, how today's students, wherever they may be located, can go global with technology projects.
Buenos dias, this is Steve Katz from Country Day School in Costa Rica.
Ni hao from Beijing.
Annyeonghaseyo, this is Sarah Patterson from Korea International School in Seoul, South Korea.
Ni hao, hello. My name is Susan Cedro and I teach in Singapore.
Xin chào, my name's Hazel and I'm in Vietnam.
안녕하세요. I'm Beatrice and I live in Korea.
Sawadee or hello. My name is Chrissy Hallier and I'm a grade 5 teacher at ISB Bangkok.
Xin chào, my name is Clint Hamada and I'm from UNIS Hanoi in Vietnam.
Annyeong, I'm Kathy Lee and I'm currently living in Korea.
Now that you've been introduced to everyone, let's get started. Please note that you can find all supporting resources, websites, project examples, helpful tips, everything for this presentation on the wiki listed above, going-global.wikispaces.com. This presentation will be broken down into 3 parts: culture shock, convergence, and the future of education. Part 1, culture shock. I've only been able to live abroad and to experience both the positive and negative aspects of culture shock thanks to international schools. International schools were developed to meet the needs of expatriate families, that is, families who have moved overseas, usually due to their employment or personal interest. For example, diplomats, executives of multinational corporations, employees of nonprofit organizations, or even just people who enjoy living abroad. In my opinion, this makes international schools especially exciting because we have families and teachers from all over the world spending every school day together. Here at ISB, for example, we have students from over 50 countries. The first 2 international schools were founded in Geneva, Switzerland, and Yokohama, Japan. There are now international schools in every major city around the world. In fact, there are over 90 schools in Bangkok alone which aim to provide an international education. These schools exist for 2 main purposes: for local and foreign families who want their children to receive an international education, and for families who are only temporarily abroad and who want their children to receive an education compatible with that of their home country. Usually because the curriculum of international schools is Western, that is, either American, British, Canadian, New Zealand, or Australian, they tend to hire teachers with certification from those countries. This is how I found myself in August of 2000, moving to Munich. That fall, my husband Alex and I moved from a small town in Connecticut in the United States to Munich, Germany, where I taught at Munich International School for 5 years. From 2005 to 2007, we lived in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and worked at Mont Kiara International School. Since then, I've been teaching at International School Bangkok in Thailand. One interesting thing about the expatriate or international school population is that although the majority of people in this situation have chosen to be there, we often live in a way that's more or less insulated from the local culture, living in a foreign nation but not really adapting to it. In any case, no matter what conditions they live in, all expatriates inevitably experience some form of culture shock. When traveling to or living in different countries, most people experience varying degrees of discomfort when we realize how different other cultures and other countries really are. Living overseas, culture shock can extend for months or even years while you readjust your expectations, attitudes, behaviors, and communication styles to adapt to the new culture. Having had this experience in 3 different countries over the last 10 years, I know that every time I go through the process of culture shock, I learn something new about myself and about how to interact with others. Although I've lived overseas in both Western and Eastern cultures, it's really been the last 5 years in Asia where the cultures are so different from my own personal upbringing that I've been so energized by daily life in the place that I'm living. Culture shock is not always negative, and I found the collision to be inspiring. This presentation will focus mostly on Asia because I found it so different from my own upbringing that it's really challenged and energized my thinking. But I feel these sorts of insights would occur to anyone who moved into or explored cultures different from their own. Now in my third cultural context outside my own, I realize that the lessons of culture shock are more than just personal internal adaptations, that there are actually physical representations of cultural mindsets all around us. Daily activities in unfamiliar or new places can be inspiring metaphors, and I've seen many things in Asia that I feel mirror or symbolize attributes that we want our schools to have. Although at first they might not seem to be obvious parallels to the world of educational technology, I think there's something we can learn about how to think about the schools of the future from watching the ways that different people from different cultures interact. These are some of the crucial emerging concepts for 21st century education that we'll be exploring in this section. In Asia, everything seems to be constantly in motion. From street cart and market vendors to tuk-tuk taxi drivers, being able to pick up and change locations at the drop of a hat is the name of the game. For education, the portability of mobile computing devices, whether they be phones, laptops, netbooks, iPods, or whatever comes next, will enable learning to take place whenever, wherever. I grew up hearing the phrase, "the customer is always right," but I must admit that the American version pales in comparison to the individualization and customization of service provided here in Southeast Asia. No matter how outlandish the request, or whether or not it's on the menu, you'll find yourself leaving with just what you wanted. In contrast to today's educational system, where we find ourselves limited by the physical availability of teachers, classroom space, and resources, we should be striving to provide personalized learning experiences for each individual student, whether it be Arabic classes in a small town in the United States or AP U.S. history classes in Oman. To an outside observer, Asian marketplaces and buildings can seem to spring up, expand immensely, or disappear overnight. Even in the upscale malls, stores come and go at a very rapid pace. Any roadside vendor who isn't getting enough business will simply pack up and move to a more promising location. Most schools, on the other hand, are far less able to adapt to change. Everyone in the extended educational community, teachers, parents, board members, etc., all remember their school days and end up often being resistant to update their viewpoint because that's the way we've always done it. Whether we like it or not, in the years since we were school children, things have changed drastically. Content and delivery methods have changed, what students want to learn has changed, and what they need to do with it has changed. Schools need to find ways of more nimbly, realistically, and effectively adapting to the new status quo. A nice surprise when traveling in Southeast Asia is always the constant availability of goods and services around the clock. From specialty night markets, to all-night super sales at the malls, to 24-hour food deliveries, you'll never find yourself out of luck no matter what hour it is. The ringing of a school bell every afternoon shouldn't mean that's when learning stops. For the student who has a full-time job or one who wants to finish early, learning should take place whenever students are ready for it, not simply during business hours. Utilizing online learning, asynchronous communication, and differences between time zones, students and teachers should always be able to find a schedule that meets their needs. It often seems that nothing is accomplished alone in Southeast Asia. A team of 3 clerks might run a single cash register, and every bus driver seems to have 1 or more assistants along for the ride. A simple thing like repairing a pothole might require a small army of workers. In the past, classroom teachers often worked in isolation, and students would receive all their information from this single source, who was in turn the only person the individual students would share their work with. Today's problems are too complex for one person to solve alone, and there's no reason for either teachers or students to work in solitude. We need to be developing classroom and school-wide structures that encourage and reward collaboration and shared responsibility. Never mind the American concept of fast food, many meals in Asia can be prepared in a wok in less than a minute. Roadside carts and stalls instantly serve stir-fry, noodles, and an astonishing variety of snacks to steady streams of passers-by. Most of today's educational institutions, in contrast, operate more like someone laboriously preparing a pot roast, far too slow to change or accomplish new initiatives in a timely manner. In order to survive, schools need to focus on how to respond to new situations and to rapidly meet students' needs in a fast-moving world. While all cultures adapt to change over time, today's Asian societies often seem particularly adept at combining traditional ways of life with the latest technology and ideas. From Buddhist monks chatting on cell phones in Laos to kimono-wearing students in Tokyo typing on laptops, no one in Asia seems to hesitate to incorporate technology into their lives when it's useful. It's this blending of the traditional and technological that we should see mirrored in our own classrooms. Technology is far from the all-or-nothing destructive force that many educators seem to fear, and in today's world, opposition to technology integration is increasingly a disservice to students. We should be working towards a blended approach, using technological tools when appropriate to provide opportunities for diverse learners or to accommodate distance, time, or instructional needs. This thoughtful integration of technology, when combined with traditional methods of teaching and learning, can succeed in bringing together the best of both worlds. While the preferred delivery vehicle in North America is the big 18-wheeler truck, along any road in Southeast Asia you're much more likely to find mopeds, motorcycles, bikes, and a variety of smaller forms of transportation that can speed through traffic with any conceivable item for delivery. From food to propane tanks to important documents to live animals. These small vehicles are forever weaving in and out of traffic, making tiny deliveries that make it to their destinations just in time. Like these networks of small, quick, and maneuverable vehicles, learning new skills needs to happen when the student is ready, instead of being delivered in huge quantities just in case the student might need to know it in the future. This might mean designing authentic assessments that put important curricular content into context, or looking at the curriculum with an eye to focusing only on teaching what's most valuable and relevant today, or reimagining schools from the ground up to deliver important knowledge and skills to students just when they need it. While there are exceptions, many of the markets and services in Asia still adhere to the traditional system of bargaining over prices. While this system can be frustrating to those of us who aren't used to it, it can also be enjoyable and empowering. When something's value isn't arbitrarily set by a price tag, it ensures that both sides are satisfied and that the price of the item reflects its true value to that individual customer at that time. With its rigid structures, payment plans, scholarship applications, and student loans, our educational system is too often financially and ideologically inflexible. With the availability of things like iTunes U, remote access to MIT labs and NASA resources, and online universities offering new models of education, it's easy to see that an individualized learning plan, designed by the student, sourced from a variety of financially viable options, and delivered in cost-effective ways may prevail over more traditional fixed value, fixed location, fixed length courses. As other options become more prevalent, will our current educational system even be able to maintain itself? I expected to arrive in Asia and find a world completely different from the one I knew. While much is, of course, very different here, I was astonished to find that so many global brands and foods and technologies were available. In today's Asia, movies are released on the same day as they are in LA, international bookstore chains offer literature in all conceivable languages, and restaurants, groceries, and department stores overflow with goods from around the world. A typical Thai teenager might wear American sneakers, listen to South Korean pop music, and read Japanese comic books. While this globalization has both positive and negative aspects, it's fascinating to see how most countries in Asia are able to quickly and smoothly incorporate foreign influences while still trying to maintain their traditional cultural identities. It's this sort of fusion or blending of cultural influences that needs to be part of every child's education. The world is much larger than any one country, and students everywhere need the ability to critically analyze, appreciate, and adopt aspects of other cultures. And in cases where cultures differ, they need the global perspective to respect others and work together in spite of those differences. As you may have noticed, one characteristic shared across all of these metaphors we've discussed is a generally flexible approach. For whatever cultural, historical, or geographical reasons, I found that people in Southeast Asia seem remarkably able to change to fit any situation they find themselves in. As a foreigner living in Thailand, being immersed in daily life here has definitely inspired me to make connections about change, flexibility, and adaptation that I never would have made if I hadn't left my home country. I feel that one of the greatest benefits of this immersion has been to help me become more flexible overall, both in my personal life and combined with constant professional growth spurred by my personal learning network in terms of my ideas about what education can and should be. Now that we've explored different ways living in Asia has inspired my thinking about the future of education, let's examine the characteristics and traits of individuals who have actually grown up overseas to see what they have to teach us about success in an increasingly connected world. And thus begins Part 2, Convergence. Successful students and employees of the future will be those who've mastered certain essential skills for working in the globally linked online community. skills like the flexibility and confidence to adapt to constantly changing situations, or the communication skills to collaborate effectively with people from different countries and cultures. The best way to gain these skills used to be to physically move to the other side of the planet, and some of the best examples of students who've mastered these crucial 21st century attributes might be expatriates, international school students, and third culture kids. A third culture kid is one who's grown up entirely outside of their native or passport culture. They are those people who would have difficulty answering the question, "Where are you from?" For an example, a child holding an American passport who's grown up in another country entirely. A third culture kid might also be one with parents from two cultures, who doesn't feel at home in either. Feeling like a citizen of all countries and none, as many third culture kids do, is a situation with many challenges, but it's also one that can end up being extremely positive and rewarding. Being immersed in environments which are completely different to what they've experienced before provides opportunities for both students and teachers to develop unique attributes that are currently, and will continue to be, critical for future success. It is these unique experiences that enable individuals to move between cultures and customs with ease, to adapt to new situations, to confront challenges and solve problems collaboratively, and to communicate ideas across cultural or linguistic boundaries. Here's what some third culture kids have to say about their experience and outlook.
In international school, it's given me a lot because I've met lots of people from different places. Like, one of my best friends is from Brazil, and I don't know anyone else that's from Brazil, and so I thought that was really interesting, and it's helped me learn different languages too, and I really like doing that.
There's so many different cultures and ethnicities and everything happening there.
Hello, my name is Ben and I am 7 years old. Living overseas is cool because I make friends from all over the world.
Well, you have different teachers, and like most of the teachers here are from like different backgrounds and stuff, so like they actually teach you some of their culture in the process of teaching. Some are British, some are Australian, some are American, so and they all come from different places. And everywhere, like every class, like the teacher would have a different teaching style, and like they would bring a little bit of their culture forward. So I think that's pretty cool. That's why I really like that.
It's interesting to see what happens when a new student comes to school. I remember being a new student myself at various schools or teaching at schools in the US. There was always, a couple of days or maybe even a week where that student really felt isolated. But here I think everybody knows what it feels like to be new, to be coming into a new school, living in a different country. And so they're so accepting and so willing to welcome all of these new students into their classes.
The biggest thing I learned as an international school student is how to communicate with people from different cultures. In an international school, all the students and all the teachers come from different cultures. And the school also offers us a lot of opportunities to interact with people from foreign cultures. For an example, MUN, speech and debate tournaments, and all the sports tournaments that we have with other international school students and foreign school students. Last month, the school also offered us the opportunity to attend the Flat Classroom workshop, where we learned how to communicate and cooperate with people from all around the world through technology. And it was a great experience. The world is getting smaller, flatter, more international, and more cosmopolitan. And the greatest thing about being an international school student is that I'm getting ready to be part of that smaller world.
Growing up overseas has taught me a lot of things. Since I don't really know any differently, in many ways it's sort of defined who I am.
It's made me a better person because, before I lived abroad, I lived in the suburbs a lot, so it was like just a bunch of perfect communities, and here I see that not all the world is really pretty and that a lot of people don't have as much as we do and they need our help.
You can't live overseas, and certainly you can't live in developing nations without being flexible. And that's, anything can happen any day. Anything from, traffic because of a flood or for royalty or whatever that turns a 10-minute drive into a 2-hour drive, to the other side, which is, just amazing people or adventures that you didn't expect to see just down the corner or around a back alley, and you never know what you're going to see and find, and that's always been exciting, and being able to adapt to new situations and people who don't speak your language has just made you flexible, has made me flexible, and I don't see how anyone could not be flexible living in this situation.
With my wider scope of culture, I think I will easily get used to new places around the world and more easily absorb other cultures. This experience actually made it easier for me to blend in and not be afraid of new experiences.
I was born in Germany but lived my teenage years in Argentina. When I was 20 years old, I moved to the USA. I guess I used to be what you call a third culture kid. A kid who has had the experience of growing up among worlds. TCKs, that is what they're called, navigate with ease between languages, customs, and traditions. A kid who's used to flying by herself over the river and oceans and through the woods and different countries to grandmother's house. At this point, I'm probably considered more a third culture person, not a kid anymore. But that does not mean that I have it figured all out. I'm continuing to learn and experience how to float between languages and cultures.
You also learn to be independent. From a very young age, I was traveling by myself, working out airports and immigration and baggage claim, and finding my way in cabs and buses and all sorts of things. And with that sort of independence comes a level of confidence in being able to make your own decisions and problem solve and communicate with hand signals and such. I mean, when you start pulling that off, you realize, you know what, I can do this, and you develop a lot of confidence.
I'm born on the small island of Barbados, and I'm a Canadian citizen, and I'm currently teaching a Canadian curriculum in a school in Dalian, China. And on that very day, I sat at lunch and watched a young Korean girl and a young German girl sitting and eating spaghetti with chopsticks. And it just kind of hit me that we really do live in a connected world.
As a third culture person, I will always have the feeling that I belong to all of my cultures and none of them. The one that I was born into, the one that I grew up in, and the one that I lived most of my life. I feel connected and at the same time as someone who does not completely belong. I move around in all three cultures and languages with ease, but at the same time feel a foreigner in each one of them.
I don't really know if Pakistan is my home anymore, because wherever I go, I try to fit in. And where my family is, that's where my home. Like, there's a lot of different religions, a lot of people's values and morals, most. So I've learned a lot, like, since moving from Pakistan.
International school for me when I first came to Korea was like home, since I was more used to the Western culture than Korean. I met many new friends that are more like me, who lived abroad but was still Korean inside. Some of the international school students that I have met in the Hong Kong Flat Classroom Conference were actually quite similar to Korean international school students, because they were in fact all multicultural, and they also had the Western culture and their Asian culture mixed and intertwined. And so I found it very valuable to be able to meet other students in other countries who are actually having the same experience that we do in Korea. Since I was multicultural, I was given the opportunity to absorb many different things and meet many different friends. I became more diverse and open-minded about new ideas.
I understand religion and culture and traditions a lot more, and I feel privileged to have been able to learn about all of them in ways that people often don't get a chance to.
Finally, when you start living amongst other people and in other cultures, what starts out is maybe tolerance and learning to, sort of understand that people think differently. I think that inevitably, as you grow older and more mature, you start to realize that tolerance has turned into something better and greater, and turns into empathy and appreciation. And, you know, I think I don't necessarily know that growing up overseas as a young kid, I got that. I think, you know, I started to be exposed to other cultures, and I think that was important. But certainly now, sort of in reflection, I've become, you know, much more appreciative of varying cultures and religions and ways of thinking that have just transformed who I am and what I want for the world.
It's really great because, I mean, and you get to see different places that you never knew existed. Before we moved to Switzerland, I had no clue what that was. I thought it was like a food or something. So it just really opened my eyes.
Before I moved here, my whole life was going to be spent in Illinois. Like, I had it all planned out. I was going to be in Illinois for the rest of my life. And now that I lived here, it's like there's so many other places to live and there's so many other places to go. So it's definitely changed a lot for me.
I'm Jane Ross. I'm Australian born, but I spent many years in Indonesia as a child. I feel so influenced by Indonesian cultures. I use my right hand out of habit and other body language signals that are Indonesian and quite foreign for Australians. I attended boarding school in Australia, but I always got to go home to Jakarta every couple of months. By this time I felt that I had two homes. Later, I married a Batak from North Sumatra, after first being adopted by a Batak clan so that I could have a full traditional wedding and continue the family line, which is so important considering I married the eldest son. You might ask, do I feel more Australian or Batak? Of course, I still call Australia home, but sometimes I feel on the outside of my first culture. I believe that I learn the most about who I am whenever I return to Australia. I always experience culture shock when I go back to Australia. It's like I'm watching what's happening when I'm actually experiencing it firsthand. It is by reconnecting with my first culture that I am able to see it from an outside perspective. So how has this impacted on my teaching? I feel that I'm able to view things with a broader perspective. Being fluent in Indonesian, of course, has given me so many skills beyond the obvious ones. Sometimes I feel like I don't fit in with either culture. The World Wide Web has redefined how we identify with culture. To be able to connect on a daily basis with others from all over the globe, compared to the past of just reading print in a book, has profoundly impacted on how we learn.
Be flexible, independent, adventurous, and appreciative of others. Yeah, that's what I got from my living overseas, and certainly it's what I would value in any learner anywhere.
My children are not third culture kids. They're growing up in the country that they were born in. I still understood the value and the importance of raising them bilingual, though. It was important to me to raise them with passports that had stamps of countries of different continents and with the global awareness and some sort of appreciation. If one does not have the luxury of a second or a third culture surrounding their family and the assurance that their children will pick up another language and the culture by osmosis, then it becomes imperative to seek out opportunities and experiences that will create these lasting impressions and memories.
If you'd have told me 2 years ago that I'd be living in a totally different country, in a totally different culture, I would have smiled and said, not possible. But possible it is, and one of the reasons why I think it's been a lot easier for me to settle and become immersed in another culture is those things that we as educators firmly believe are really important. Those things called adaptability and flexibility and global collaboration and communication. Those are the things that I believe have made my transition from one culture to another a little bit easier, and they have also firmly cemented for me the importance of exposing our students to more global collaboration and communication opportunities within their lifetime.
These skills, behaviors, and attitudes are valuable for anyone and will only become more important in the future. Fortunately, you don't need to move around the world to obtain them. These types of formative international experiences can now be available to all students, no matter where they are, through globally collaborative projects. Part 3. The Future of Education. The first step to bringing a global perspective into your classroom, no matter where you are in the world, is to begin to develop your own personal learning network, and ideally by filling that personal learning network with other educators who are living in different countries around the world. A personal learning network is basically the group of people who you collaborate with and learn from on a regular basis, not just in your face-to-face working environment, but also online. The best thing about a personal learning network is that it doesn't matter where you are in the world. The people you choose to include become your colleagues who are learning together with you, sharing ideas with you, and collaborating with you on similar concepts and at the same pace. There are a variety of tools you can use to grow your own PLN. The key is you need to connect yourself to connect your class. Although you can always utilize these technology tools to connect your class with other students before building your own network, I feel that you will personally feel more confident, have a deeper understanding of the tools, and be able to provide a better and more seamless experience for your students when you have first-hand experience of using these tools as an educator. If you're watching this presentation, you've probably already developed your own personal learning network, but I'm also hoping that you might be willing to share this presentation with your colleagues or with other educators who might be looking to start from scratch. In my opinion, here are 6 steps you can take to begin to build your own personal learning network. There's no right way to build a PLN. This is just an overview of the way I might approach it if I were doing it all over again. I feel that an RSS reader is a great foundation for building your own PLN. I like to refer to reading RSS feeds as learning by lurking. There's no pressure to interact. You can find the specific voices that resonate with you personally and rotate through feeds as quickly or slowly as you need, all in the comfort of a somewhat familiar environment. Another great entry point in addition to RSS is joining social networks, especially those dedicated to education. There are a variety of Ning social networks dedicated to educational topics ranging from IB Bio to using interactive whiteboards in the classroom to teaching language arts through the Readers and Writers Workshop model. The great thing about joining a social network is that you know everyone else who's there is looking to make connections and learn and share with other like-minded educators. So it's like walking into a teacher's lounge staffed with supportive and resourceful colleagues. Once you've started finding your niche within the thousands of helpful educators online, the next step is to express yourself and start your own blog. The great thing about a blog is that that's how you develop your online profile. Your blog can be a one-stop shop for other educators wishing to learn about you, as well as a place to share your thoughts, ideas, and reflections on your learning. Once you've given others the opportunity to get to know you a little bit more personally through your blog, and you've found a network of people who are interested in the same things you are, you'll probably want to connect with them more regularly on a more personal level, which is perfect for Skype. To continue to broaden your PLN or to connect with other educators, you might want to attend online conferences like this one. There are so many different opportunities to learn in online spaces, whether they be via download like this one or synchronous conferences in Second Life. There are people meeting online to learn together pretty much all the time, and you never know who you might meet. Finally, once you're fully ensconced in the world of online learning, you might want to give Twitter a try. Although it may not be as in-depth or reflective as a blog, it's a great way to build your network, expand your interests, and make more real-time connections with other educators around the world. As a globally connected educator with your own PLN, you will have a variety of tools at your fingertips to help your students build their own global personal learning networks. From blogs, to wikis, to podcasts, to multimedia, to Skype, to Twitter, and to whatever comes next, you and your students can mix and match these tools however they best suit your curriculum. You can use them one at a time, in conjunction with each other, or all at the same project. It really doesn't matter. The important part is to just give it a try. If you're interested in designing globally collaborative projects for your class, you may enjoy the K-12 online session Jen Wagner and I presented last year entitled Connecting Classrooms Across Continents that describes in detail the process of planning and creating a project like this. Of course, I will include resources and links to all these ideas in my own wiki for this presentation. No matter where you are in the world, by incorporating these tools into your classroom and connecting your students with learners from different countries, you will be modeling the flexible attributes needed for the future of education which we discussed in the first section of this presentation. planning a project that incorporates communication and collaboration across distances will let your students experience the adaptable, constantly connected, and globalized world of the future. Changing the dynamic of the classroom from a teacher-led process to a student-centered one that expands the boundaries of learning beyond the four walls of the classroom and lets them learn from their peers and share their products with the world will enable you and your students to take advantage of the ways that people are beginning to, and will continue to, use technology not just for amusement, but to learn, create, and share. Adopting this new mindset is as much a benefit for teachers as it is for learners. The teacher who is able to blend traditional teaching and learning methods with those new, more collaborative approaches will be the teacher who is ready for the next change in our educational system, whenever that might come. And so by preparing students to succeed in the world of the future, teachers will also simultaneously be preparing themselves to face the educational world of the future. In addition to providing a truly connected classroom environment, by interacting with students and teachers around the world on a regular basis, you will also be exposing your students to the unique experiences that help develop the global perspective shared by most third culture kids, as we discussed in the second section of this presentation. As a teacher, I've always wanted my students to be flexible and adaptable, to demonstrate tolerance, appreciation, empathy, and to have a global perspective. But without exposing them to genuine interactions with a diverse population, it can be difficult to develop that kind of mindset within the classroom walls. By bringing the world into your classroom, you provide the opportunity for authentic engagement with multicultural and multilingual perspectives. I hope this presentation has gotten you thinking about the different ways that you can embrace global collaborations in your classroom. If this is the first time that you're hearing some of these ideas, it might seem like a lot to consider at once. But I firmly believe that anyone, anywhere, can implement these ideas in their own classroom by starting small and having clear goals in mind. Please know that there is a world of educators, both international and in their home country, that are ready and willing to help, without whom I wouldn't be sharing this presentation with you today. Personally, I am so grateful and thankful for all that my PLN has helped me to achieve, and I know that you will find the experience of expanding your personal learning network just as valuable. Don't hesitate to get started today. Thank you so much for watching this presentation, and I look forward to connecting with you on the presentation wiki listed on the screen now.
кряхтят, стараются, как бабы на сносях. Здесь каждый день поет трава, и в небо падают все чаще. Я сел, я понял, что я лес, я чаще.